And our next presentation, I'd like to invite Klaus on the stage to introduce our next guests.
Thanks, Alex. Much appreciated. Yeah, I'd love to invite Will from SaaSquatch and Nate from RingCentral to join me up on stage. And I'll actually let these guys do the interview among themselves. But before I do, I wanted to just give you a little bit of context. So Will is from a company called SaaSquatch. They do a loyalty and referral program platform, or a platform to enable you to run these programs. And Nate is one of Will's customers actually at RingCentral. So I wanted to give you a little bit of context why I felt it would be very beneficial to have Will and Nate join us here today and talk a little bit about their experience. One is, we see loyalty and referral programs pop up quite frequently in tenders and in RFPs that we're looking at. So we don't do it directly, so I feel there is a good synergy here. The second thing is, there's increased talk about recession globally, and to me, recession always means you got to do more with what you got. So also, the third thing, based on personal experience from direct sales at PortaOne over the last 10 years, acquisition costs, or the reduction in acquisition cost, is tremendous, and it's hard to quantify if you look at the power of referrals. So that's always been the case for us at PortaOne, and I don't see why that wouldn't be the case for you also. And the last thing is, I feel SaaS companies are experts at optimizing acquisition and/or retention strategies. So I do feel they can bring a very valuable viewpoint to the telco space, because they oftentimes have to satisfy aggressive growth targets for their investors. So there may be something that you, or that all of us in telco, can learn. So without much further ado, Will and Nate, thank you very much for joining me. And I'll jump off the stage and let you guys do this session here.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Klaus. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you all very much for your time here today. As was said, I'm Will Fraser, and I'm the CEO of SaaSquatch. And the name SaaSquatch includes that word SaaS, S-A-A-S, in the beginning of it, and that's because that's where we started. And I would agree, you know, we started there because this is an industry that's been driving digital referral programs for quite some time to a really high level of effectiveness. And well, I can tell you all about kind of how we see them cutting, you know, customer acquisition costs, how we see them building flywheels and all sorts of wonderful techniques to grow businesses. I really wanted to bring Nate Yip here, who's the Director of Growth and Demand Generation at RingCentral. I wanted to bring him because he's actually using this technology in a telco type environment, and really has that kind of, you know, feet on the street experience that I think really helps to bring home the value of these type of programs. So, you know, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Of course, thank you. Awesome to always see you, Will. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about referrals and loyalty, so let's get started.
So, I mean, I think it was interesting. This is a topic that I hear lots of groups kind of say we want to do, right? But they kind of struggle to get into it. You know, I guess my first kind of question is, you know, how did you start working in the referrals and loyalty space at RingCentral, and maybe even how did RingCentral come to this as a thing they were looking to do?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So back in 2016, I know RingCentral started a referral program, but it was going to be for 2 quarters. I don't know why it was for 2 quarters, but it was only for 2 quarters. And I guess someone left the light switch on, basically, and the program just went on and on and on. And there had been, you know, tepid, you know, forays into referrals because, you know, obviously it's a great growth driver, etc. Right? But no real concerted effort on it for the longest time. So how I got into it is actually through lunch. I made a friend at work and had lunch with him at the cafeteria downstairs, and struck up a friendship, and he was telling me what he was doing, and I was telling him what I was doing, and I was doing brand marketing and integrated communication. So marketing that was kind of fluffy, and he kind of wanted to switch out because there were no revenue pipe, no hard numbers. And I know that with any recession or whatever that comes up, we're probably would be the first to go. There was really no challenge. Anyways, he told me one day that, hey, there was a referral. There was a position opening to manage the referral program as a full-time job, And so what we've done is he said, yes, go ahead and apply. I will vouch for you, I'll back you up. And I did a couple of interviews with VPs and the CMO, and I got the job. So that's how I got started.
And I think one of the interesting things there is we're seeing more and more of this is where groups are putting people into a full-time role around customer advocacy. And building out more than just, like you said, a 2-quarter initiative or kind of a flash in the pan promotion we're going to push for a season, but they're really committing to that. Like, this is one of our major channels. We have paid, organic, we have maybe mailer, physical world, but this is a key program we're seeing companies continue to develop.
Yeah, I could totally vouch for that. I was at actually a mailer conference, direct mail conference, okay? Old tech, really reliable stuff. Questions about referrals, for sure. They were asking us about referrals. It's gone to that point, especially right now, as Klaus was talking about, in this age of macroeconomic headwinds, customer loyalty, referrals, huge topic. And the reason why is the proof is in the pudding, quite honestly. It's because referrals are the most efficient way to drive leads and pipe and revenue, for sure. My program, the referral program at RingCentral, amongst the other ones, other demand gen channels, by far the most efficient.
And yes, maybe let's just touch on that for a second. Are you measuring the referral program on a cost per acquisition basis, on a pipe? What are the kind of the measures that you guys use to prove the value of this program?
Sure. Churn rate. Let's see, if our referrals churn out. Obviously, a lower churn out for the referrals because they know the referrer. Cost per pipe, cost per revenue, cost per lead, cost per op, cost per close win, lead to op to close, lead to close. That's what we all measure, and we get graded, quote unquote graded, and have targets every single quarter on it. So it's a very well measured program, for sure.
And this is interesting because I hear these numbers kind of like it's very, very efficient as a channel, and yet I think that there's still a lot of groups that aren't able to pull the trigger on it, aren't able to kind of start that program because kind of other priorities might be in the way. Any experience on how to elevate this to kind of the executive room to get that buy-in for maybe more programs or a first program?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I was just thinking about that question a little bit because that is a really good question. So what I'm thinking is, at least for RingCentral, we're very results-oriented, demand gen. What's your revenue? What's your program? What's the revenue that your programs bring in? What's the pipe that your programs bring in, right? So I think leading with those numbers and honing in on that acquisition aspect and the dollars or the revenue that you will provide the company and the efficiency there will be your number one best friend, for sure. And that's what we've done at RingCentral is we proved the case to do that. We earned the seat at the table prior to me coming in. And I'm no one special, right? It's more like, Nate, you have a full-time job. This is what you're supposed to do. Referral program is not doing well, or we don't know the potential of the referral program because no one's really honed in on it, right? Let's get you some targets to hit, right? So, just proving the point that revenue can come from the referral program, for sure.
And so maybe it's actually just good, we've been kind of talking around the referral program and how we see really efficient metrics and all those things. Maybe it's just good to share with people, what is the program or the programs that RingCentral is running?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we do have a US and Canada external referral program. So RingCentral plans, probably most of our customers, our end user base, we go ahead and refer RingCentral to their networks, friends, and family. So that by far is our biggest program and the longest program, right? The most history starting back in 2016. The second one that we just launched last year was an internal referral program for RingCentral employees. So obviously thousands of employees. We all have networks, so we can go ahead and refer our friends, family, people who we graduated with, etc. Right? And then the third one, which I'm actually happy to announce, is our UK referral program that we just launched last month in earnest. And it's our first foray out of the US, Canada, countries and into across the pond and over the UK. And who knows what's next? I mean, the EU and Latin America and Asia Pac, the world's our oyster, I would say.
And it's interesting because you just mentioned there a few different target markets, because I think this is a concern that sometimes people have about consumers versus small business. It sounds like you're involving all of them in that program, right?
Yes, absolutely. Any audience that can refer, I'm going to be involved. And SaaSquatch is the perfect platform for it, quite honestly. It's very easy to quote unquote copy and paste, modify some rules, and to design certain user experience for each audience. Obviously, different countries have different laws, and so we would have to modify the rules and how we do things for sure. But you guys made it very easy to get it up and running for sure.
No, thank you for that, Nate. And I think that one of the things here is Nate's a very modest guy, but there's a software solution to this, but then there's an ongoing how do you really drive that connection with your customer perspective. And I think that's one of the things that RingCentral's done really well. And I think that we can talk about the ROI. There's amazing returns on this you're seeing. But there's also just the tactics you're employing to really keep your advocates engaged and aware of this. What kind of things do you find really work? So if someone here is ready to go on a referral program, the implementation is complete, and they click that button, what have you found to be key to driving growth and success in the programs from your side?
That's a very good question. So I'm a big believer, huge believer in partnering up with other organizations within the company who can actually help to get you there. And that's the reason why we are, at least for this referral program at RingCentral, have been very, very successful, in which, none of my predecessors have done. But basically what I've done, number one, and this was a very good advice for me, was to work with our sales team. Our sales team work with many people, obvious customers, right? And our expansion team. So they are your biggest fans. They would be your biggest fans. So I've worked with all our salespeople. Every positive interaction, get a referral. Every positive interaction, get a referral. That's the easiest, cheapest way to actually get your message out there. Because again, we're a very sales-heavy organization, right? Sales drive revenue, and there are hundreds of salespeople. Guess what? We can have hundreds of questions. Do you have a referral for us? For example, right? So that's number one. Number two, our life cycle team has taken the referral banner. For example, we have life cycle emails and notifications. Have them drive it. Again, partner up with other teams within the company and help drive that. So that's a huge one. And then obviously there are other demand gen channels. Let's marry referrals with other demand gen channels, see if we can make that work. And also the last point, very important point, is apps. If you have an app, that's a great way to really drive referrals. You marry the your app's experience, your company's experience, what you do with referrals. You bring them closer, and people are more apt to refer. So
fantastic.
Thank you very much.
I see. Obviously, I'm jumping in here. Well, Nate,
yes.
We could probably talk for another 20 minutes, half an hour easily about what you've done. So I love that. So anyone, I really hope that some of you in the audience have maybe gained some insight and learned one or two things. So if you're interested, reach out to us here at PortaOne. We can connect you with Will and his team at SaaSquatch to maybe share a little bit more about what the power of loyalty and referral programs can what they've done and what it may can do to you. So really encourage you to reach out. Consider it. I think there's a big opportunity for a lot of PortaOne customers to look at that. So thanks, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us on stage and sharing about your experiences. Very much appreciated.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right.